Hey folks, as you know, I am a new cat owner of two cat brothers, and I'm starting to really fall in love with them. It's been a few months, and now it's getting serious, and I want to give them exactly the right kind of food. I'm learning as I go. I've only had dogs growing up, so it's helpful that we have a sponsor like Smalls. This podcast is sponsored by Smalls. Listeners know that my cats simply cannot live without Smalls. Same with Sam's cat. Eating it all up. And for a limited time, get 60% off your first order plus free shipping when you head to smalls.com/majority. Smalls cat food is protein packed and their recipes are made with preservative free ingredients you could find in your fridge, and it's delivered right to your door. That's why cats.com has named Smalls their best overall cat food. And starting with Smalls is easy. Just share info about your cat's diet, health, and food preferences. Then Smalls puts together a personalized sampler for your cat. No more picking between random brands at the store. Smalls has the right food to satisfy any cat's cravings. I mean, you look at some of the labels on some of these things and you go, what the heck is that? Sometimes cats have some issues with their gut or even like issues with their hydration, which is why the Smalls little juice that you can squirt on there doesn't sound that appetizing for us, but it's very good for them.
Oh yeah,
Matt knows. They
just
go nuts for it.
crazy for it.
It's very helpful because that just like a little bit of moisture in their food really helps them stay moisturized. Still not a believer in Smalls. Forbes ranks Smalls the best overall cat food, while BuzzFeed said, my cats went completely ballistic for this stuff. And I can say the same.
It's a good word for it. It's like when I don't know if you sometimes give your cat like I don't know a little piece of like a chicken sandwich or whatever, so they become trained to know that they can get something from
Right,
you when
right.
you have that. They react the same way when you go to the Smalls like juice that you put on the dry food.
Yes. And they also have a bunch of amazing treats and snacks that you can add to your order, more than just all of that great food that keeps their coat shiny, keeps them healthy. My cats love those. Oh God, what were they? Chicken treats that came in the most recent Smalls box. But it's a little holiday gift for them. And after switching to Smalls, 88% of cat owners reported overall health improvements. That is a big deal. And the team at Smalls is so confident your cat will love their product. You can try it risk-free. That means they will refund you if your cat won't eat their food. What are you waiting for? Give your cat the food they deserve for a limited time because you are a Majority Report listener. Get 60% off your first order plus free shipping when you head to smalls.com/majority. One last time, that's 60% off your first order plus free shipping when you head to smalls.com/majority. And we will put a link down below in the episode and YouTube description. And people are pointing out that I said moisturize instead of hydrated. So doing great, meant hydrated. Again, for a limited time, get 60% off your first order plus free shipping when you head to smalls.com/majority. And now, time for the show.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
The destiny of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Seder.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
Ever get the feeling you've been cheated?
It is Thursday, December 4th, 2025. My name is Emma Vigeland, in for Sam Seder, and this is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Clay Risen, author of Red Scare, Blacklists, McCarthyism, and the Making of Modern America, will be with us. And we're still TBD. We had a bit of a scheduling issue, but potentially somebody from the National Day Laborers Organizing Network will be with us.
They're a little busy with things.
With
these days.
organizing, yes. So don't hold it against them, folks. But we shall see on that front. Otherwise, we have other news to get to. Also on the program, consulting firm Challenger finds that U.S. job cuts have topped $1 million. I mean, 1 million. 1 million people, Jesus, this year. The highest since the height of COVID, and up over 50% when you compare it to 2024. So, economy's not doing great.
Give it time.
The girls are coming for Mike Johnson. Female Republicans say the fundamentalist evangelical leader isn't respectful of them. Nancy Mace, Marjorie Taylor Greene, and the like. Oh, and
Women.
Stefanik, most notably.
Women, am I right, guys?
Yeah.
Well, if it were Mike Johnson, gosh darn it, women.
Yeah. Right. Witches.
Succubus.
Inspector General's report on Pete Hegseth's use of Signal is about to be released, concluding that he committed some wrongdoing. The New York Times sues the Pentagon over its censorious press restrictions. Trump pardons a corrupt real estate developer indicted just months ago by his own DOJ. I see myself in you. AT&T promises to end its DEI practices. Just coincidentally, AT&T needs FCC approval for a proposed $1 billion purchase of wireless spectrum assets. CDC advisors meet today on whether or not to scrap hepatitis B vaccine recommendations for newborns. That has saved millions of lives globally.
But at what cost?
Literally no cost, buddy. Democrats release images of Epstein Island, and the DOJ dodges questions about the files ahead of that December 19th deadline for their release. Trump renames the Institute of Peace after himself. I don't have much more detail.
I've got a great piece.
Didn't you see my hands?
Sorry, not during the headlines.
Brian, don't apologize. That's my thing, to constantly say sorry. Israel bombs Gaza and Lebanon overnight, violating both ceasefires continuously, over and over and over and over again.
What does the word cease mean?
Yeah. And lastly, on this day in 1969, Fred Hampton of the Black Panther Party was drugged and killed by the FBI and Chicago police. All this and more on today's Majority Report. Welcome to the show, everybody. It's an M Majority Report Thursday, so happy to be with you. We will get right into it. Biggest story of the day is that, last night there were a few major stories that ended up breaking in legacy media publications. And when I see something like this, or just the past few weeks, really starting since the Epstein vote, which has also triggered Trump enormously. I mean, this is where he's been, that's when the Quiet Piggy happened. This is when his Trump Truth Social posting sprees were happening. His most emotional meltdowns seem to have been triggered by his inability to quash this, and having essentially the entire legislative body of Republicans revolt against him because the base wanted this and he was unable to assuage them because he's likely very much implicated. And so now we're starting to see, and also, of course, the election results being so poor for Republicans across the board, the Trump administration is starting to leak like a sieve. They had a lid on this stuff for a little while, but they're worrying. The rats are scurrying here. Matt, you want to say something?
Well, I was just going to say, at some point, we talked about like the Steve Bannon thing from earlier this year where he said, people are just going to have to get used to it. Trump's going to be the president 2028 to 2032. And that is, I think, a threat against democracy, and that should be taken seriously. But it's also something that Trump needs to say, because the second that people start looking at him as a lame duck and thinking about, well, what's after this, his power starts to evaporate extremely quickly. And I think like a lot of these cracks we're seeing now is because of that.
100%. I mean, he is careening towards lame duck territory, and the first year of his presidency isn't even.
What was that? Sorry.
And by careening, I mean a Secret Service person is driving a golf cart really
Sleepwalking.
fast. He's not able to careen at this point. Walking might be hard too, right? We've seen that limp. His health is obviously deteriorating, but this Inspector General's report is also making a lot of waves here. There was a multi-month investigation by the Pentagon's internal watchdog about Pete Hegseth sending classified information over Signal, if you'll remember that story, you know, the one where he added the reporter from the Atlantic, as well as his wife and brother, by the way, to a commercially available chat on Signal, or the app Signal's commercially available, point being, and not secure for this kind of thing.
Not through official channels.
You're not supposed to be talking about airstrikes on Signal.
It should be through a communications platforms that can be like easily recovered in case you need to maybe investigate war crimes or something like that.
I mean, this is why they're using Signal. They're not using their official channels, and that is what this Inspector General report ended up finding. Like, they didn't necessarily deal with all of the potential illegalities here. But they basically found that he was using his personal device for official business, and that he put military personnel, U.S. military personnel, in danger here. And the document...
Just to point out, like, there was like times that the planes carrying the bombs were leaving the aircraft carriers and stuff like that, which is like, I don't know what more you need to know.
Exactly. And there was the full classified report was shared with the House and Senate Armed Services committees yesterday. It appears like it's likely to come out today. And here is Representative Mike Turner of Ohio, high up on the Armed Services Committee in the House, on Morning Joe this morning. And listen to this tone about this compared to how Republicans have spoken about Trump's brazenly illegal actions in the months prior to this.
Start by asking you, what are the top one or two questions that you would like answered that Pete Hegseth has refused to answer for the Armed Services Committees in the House and Senate?
Well, Joe, as you just indicated, I mean, as you were going over some of the scenarios and some of the outcomes that are concerning here, you can understand that the discussions that are happening between members of Congress. You know, we start first with the legal opinion under which these attacks on these boats first began. And members of Congress had questions as to whether or not the validity of the legal opinion, the construct of the legal opinion, and then the operations that were being undertaken under the constructs of the legal opinion. And then the questions that arose after the questions of this second tap or however many taps it was that may have occurred here, that clearly, you know, fall under the law of war manual, under the questions of the circumstances of this act. But what's really clear here is that, you know, this is not necessarily the normal rules of engagement. This is not a battlefield, and where they're undertaking these attacks under, you know, what is this issue of attacking the drug trade. You know, this is not the normal construct that we have of terrorism, where we think of like ISIS or Afghanistan or Iraq. So there's very much concerns where we all go back to the issue of the intelligence and what intelligence is being used. What do we really know about these individuals? What do we know about this cargo? What do we know about the communications that here? And quite frankly, many members have very much concerns as to whether or not the accuracy of what information is being used is to the level for us to even know what's happening in this area. And members are very concerned.
You know, Mr. Chairman,
that's good. I should have set that up a little bit better. That was about the other blatantly illegal action that this Department of Defense has taken. That was about the Venezuela boat strikes, which they're also going to be looking into. We this morning, it was revealed that that admiral, the Navy admiral who Hegseth threw under the bus and basically said, "We stand by you 100%, Admiral Bradley."
Frank Mitch Bradley.
Yeah.
The decision that you made.
The decision that you
that
made.
I wasn't in the room for, that I didn't see.
Right.
I didn't stick around, man.
I was in the room. I just gave the general vibe that I wanted you to do it, but I didn't
He did the
tell
right
you to
thing.
do this illegal action.
He did the right thing, but just remember the fog of war.
Right. In the conference room. So he's going to be basically testifying today on.
And we should just
this
say,
act.
since it's Pete Hegseth we're talking about, he's a black guy.
Oh no, that's a different admiral.
Oh,
We're
different
getting
one.
all. See, this is what I'm saying.
Sorry.
There's a big stew of not. This Admiral Bradley is not. He's going to be testifying. We'll see what he says, because I would be pretty pissed if I were him.
Gotcha.
If you had this like completely incompetent booze hound blaming
TV
me.
star?
Yeah, saving your skin so publicly, his own skin so publicly, and throwing you under the bus. It'll be interesting to see, I think, both the tenor of the Republicans' questions towards him and his reaction to them, obviously. But the story that Matt is alluding to there is, again, another legacy publication. The Wall Street Journal had a story last night about Pete Hegseth. This is when I talk about the rats scurrying here. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth shocked official Washington in mid-October when he announced that the 4-star head of U.S. military operations in the Caribbean was retiring less than a year into his tenure. But according to 2 Pentagon officials, Hegseth asked Admiral Alvin Halsey to step down, a de facto ouster that was the culmination of months of discord between Hegseth and the officer. It began days after President Trump's inauguration in January and intensified months later when Halsey had initial concerns about the legality of lethal strikes on alleged drug boats in the Caribbean, according to former officials aware of the discussions. Not long after, Hegseth announced that Halsey would be retiring. He, I think, was the first black man in his position.
Gotcha.
This is obviously not a coincidence. The Trump administration has been just attacking both senior black officials across a variety of different agencies, but also like the first in their position to be black.
The Kill Bill
Lisa
alarm
Cook,
goes
for
off.
example.
Yeah, exactly.
And I mean, it's just between them openly tweeting out very obvious Nazi phrases from official accounts. It's just
they're Klansmen.
It sounds rote, but we can't talk about this administration without talk about the deep white supremacy that is embedded in it across a variety of different agencies. And just so you know, this guy wasn't just like too woke or something. The admiral,
the 4-star,
the guy who's like a multi-decade veteran of the Navy, the admiral, a 60-year-old Navy helicopter pilot nicknamed Bull, total softy, had seemed a good fit to carry out Trump's military campaign against drug traffickers after the new president came into office. Halsey voiced support for stepping up interdiction of drug shipments and had experience at such missions. My first deployment to the Southcom area of responsibility was over 33 years ago, conducting counter-drug missions, he told lawmakers at his Senate confirmation during September 2024, arguing for a more muscular approach to dismantle the drug cartels responsible for tens of thousands of American deaths. You would think that this would be a perfect fit with the Trump administration, but no. Later in the summer, as the military began striking alleged drug boats, Halsey was initially concerned about murky legal authority for the boat strike campaign, according to former officials. With other military units under separate chains of command also involved, including elite special operations units, Halsey objected that parts of the operations fell outside his direct control, they said. But even before the boat strikes began, Hegseth had lost confidence in Halsey and was looking to replace him, according to a U.S. official.
He lost. Did he ever have confidence in him?
There's something about, I can't put my finger on it. It's like the Stavi bit about the guys in Maryland who just love Joe Flacco but can't get behind Lamar. There's something about him that I
like
can't.
A pocket presence.
Right. I like a big-armed white guy. That's just is he a wide receiver? I can't do a Baltimore accent. I'm just dangerously approaching trying to do an impression. But yeah, that's the vibe here. And so we'll see what happens with Pete Hegseth. I do think it's interesting that this is where they're kind of, I think, directing the energy. He's under a lot of fire right now, so much so that he had to go on Katie Miller's podcast. We'll play that maybe a little bit later, to talk about how he's a family man. He brought his wife on. And then said, I wouldn't trust your husband to babysit my kids. So, and to be fair to
French
Hegseth,
braided through the whole interview too. It's so gross.
right. So this is not the ex-wife that said that he was abusive. This is the new ex-wife.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Okay.
I'm sure she'll say that in 4 years.
Or not the other ex-wife who he was with when there was the rape allegation against him and the police report and the woman that said he drugged him and she went to a nurse and everything about it. It wasn't that one. I get all of the women that he's allegedly harmed.
Speaking of
confused.
women, he does still have the same mother that sent that email in 2018 about all that stuff, right? That people can look up.
She retracted it, though, when, it was an opportunity for her son to be Secretary of War.
Some things are hard to retract. I don't know.
Some things are.
Yeah.
In a moment, we will be talking to Clay Risen. First, a word from some of our sponsors. It can be so easy to say to myself that, I'll never forget to ask my parents about stories, about them growing up and having all of these memories cataloged, and you just kind of put it off and you don't like to think about it because it could be a little bit morbid and sad. But I did this, I think, two holidays ago, Storyworth, and it just was exactly what I needed to kind of make sure that I had my loved ones, I don't know, just memories or their experience kind of categorized. It's perfect. I recommend Storyworth memoirs for your loved ones this holiday season. It's a meaningful gift, and it may sound intimidating, but it's so easy they will love it. It's a gift they won't see coming, something that makes them feel truly special. Each week, Storyworth emails a loved one a memory-provoking question that you get to choose. Questions like, what were your favorite toys as a child? What are you most proud of? And all your loved one needs to do is respond to that email with a story. They can either write a story over email and record it over the phone for Storyworth to transcribe. And there are no apps to install or passwords required, so it's perfect for even the less tech-savvy relatives. After a year, Storyworth compiles your loved one's stories and photos into a beautiful keepsake hardcover book. Photos are printed in vibrant color. It's a treasure that your loved one and you will be able to share and revisit for generations. This year, Storyworth added a bunch of new features to make storytelling even easier. With their magic layout and new book designs, make finished books, and especially photos, look even more beautiful. Plus, they've rolled out a Spanish language support version. Storyworth has printed over 1 million books and preserved 35 million family stories since their founding 13 years ago. They have over 48,000 5-star reviews on Trustpilot. And as I mentioned, this was a great gift for me, for one of my family members around 2 years ago. And now I'm thinking, with these new features, maybe I double dip here. I'd like to thank Storyworth for sponsoring today's episode. Storyworth is the perfect gift for the people you love. Give your loved ones a unique keepsake you'll all cherish for years. Storyworth Memoirs. Right now, save $10 or more during their holiday sale when you go to storyworth.com/majority. That's storyworth.com/majority to save $10 or more on your order. Link down below in the video and episode descriptions and at majority.fm. And also, I would like to thank OneSkin for sponsoring today's episode. If you are like me, your skin needs some extra care this time of year. I'm getting all dry. I also am not sometimes that good about I like to sunbathe a little bit, and I need to rely on OneSkin, especially in the winter months if I want to recover. I love that OS1 Face one and that OS1 Eye one. That has been invaluable to my daily routine and delivers both powerful skincare and longevity. I love the texture of it. It's creamy, but it's light. You just need a tiny bit to cover your whole face for the OS1 Face. And then for the OS1 Eye, I've said this before, eye creams are very difficult to find because that skin is very sensitive, especially on your eyelids. And when this OS1 Eye is really just like the best eye cream that I've ever used. At the core is their patented OS1 peptide, the first ingredient proven to target senescent cells, the root cause of wrinkles, crepiness, and a loss of elasticity, which are all signs of skin aging. And the results have been validated in 5 different clinical studies. It's super easy. You just cleanse, you pat your skin dry, and apply twice daily. The packaging is awesome. You get this reusable shell. It's just a couple of pumps, and it goes on smoothly and easily. And OneSkin also just launched their limited edition holiday sets, including the Nightly Rewind gift set, which is one of those rare gifts that's both impressive and genuinely useful, providing an upgrade to anyone's nightly routine, featuring their best-selling face moisturizer, their new peptide lip mask, and a cooling gua sha tool. Each component of the set is designed to work together as your body enters its natural nightly repair mode, helping renew skin at the cellular level for a stronger, smoother, more resilient skin. That's the kind of gift, these limited edition holiday sets, that I am going to be looking into. No spoilers to my family. This season, don't just moisturize, support your skin at the cellular level with OneSkin. For a limited time, try OneSkin for 15% off using code MAJORITY at oneskin.co/majority. That's 15% off at oneskin.co/majority with code MAJORITY. After you purchase, they will ask you where you heard about them. Please help us out and tell them the Majority Report sent you. Try OneSkin today. Link down below in the video and episode description. And lastly, here's my holiday pattern. I'll tell myself I'll be thoughtful, and then you start to panic at the last minute, and you get a gift card. It's not necessarily the most personal. That's the exact opposite of the personal gift that an Aura frame is. It is sometimes hard where you just want to get a gift that means something to people, and the people you're closest to somehow gets even harder the closer you are to them. And with Aura, you just have this amazing kind of gift to you as a gift to them, because it's personalized just in its inception. You can add a message before it arrives with the Aura frame and load up photos and videos effortlessly straight from your phone all year long, and you can do it in the box. You don't need to open the box first. It's the digital picture frame that will make your family members, extended family, feel like, yeah, you're thinking of me. You miss me, even if we live across the country. I don't see you, etc. You can't wrap togetherness, but you can frame it. For a limited time, save on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com to get $35 off Aura's best-selling Carver matte frames, named #1 by Wirecutter, by using promo code MAJORITY at checkout. That's auraframes.com, promo code MAJORITY. This deal is exclusive to listeners, and frames sell out fast, so order yours now to get it in time for the holidays. Support the show by mentioning us at checkout. Terms and conditions apply, but we will put a link down below. These Aura frames are amazing. Sam has gotten them for many a family member. I have as well. And that is, use the code MAJORITY at checkout. That's auraframes.com, promo code MAJORITY. This deal is exclusive to listeners, and the frames sell out fast. Check out the episode and YouTube descriptions and at majority.fm for the link down below. Promo code MAJORITY. Quick break, and when we come back, we'll be joined by Clay Risen. We are back, and we are joined now by Clay Risen, reporter and editor at the New York Times, author of Red Scare, Blacklists, McCarthyism, and the Making of Modern America. Clay, thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Well, thanks for having me.
Of course. I've been thinking a lot about the Red Scare and, of course, McCarthyism over the past few years with, and in an accelerated manner in the last year, given the fact that the Trump administration has been openly prosecuting people, locking people up for their political speech, particularly on the issue of Israel's genocide in Gaza. And what I loved about your book is that it talks about McCarthyism in a way that isn't just this kind of more narrow focus on Hollywood or the Blacklist, which is a really important tale, but it's been done before, and it almost expands it a bit to how the Red Scare was in many ways also a cultural war against the labor movement, progress in general. And it's so eerie because it's very similar in many ways to the Trump era and builds on that. And you see how he learned from Roy Cohn and how Stephen Miller learned from that. I mean, there's history is always kind of replicating itself, I guess, is where I land here. But just, why did you want to take that tack and why did you? What elements of the Red Scare and McCarthyism did you think people didn't fully understand?
Yeah, I mean, originally I had not planned to write this book as some sort of resonance to the present. I started this back in the first Trump administration, and look, there are echoes, there are always sort of, things in the water, but I had no idea that it would be so on the nose in 2025. The book finished last year, but look, I think the thing that I was very interested in throughout working on the project was that the Red Scare, there were good reasons to be concerned about Soviet espionage and subversion. But what happened during the Red Scare was that these fairly specific concerns that were counterintelligence, law enforcement issues, became the pretext for a much more sweeping attack on progressive ideas, on the New Deal, on the political establishment after World War II. And I think that's one of the things people don't understand about the Red Scare. They don't sort of see the broadness of it. But also, I think that's one of the ways that it echoes today. I think you see a lot of that kind of, these specific concerns about drug trafficking or about, illegal or undocumented immigration, becoming pretexts for much broader assaults on large communities across the United States.
Well, and when you talk about drug trafficking, that there's still that outside invader quality to it as well, right? And you look at I was struck by, of course, the anti-Semitism of the Red Scare, the bloodlust for the execution of the Rosenbergs. You tell a story about Helen Bryan in your book, but how that echoes the Great Replacement rhetoric of today, which is both about Jewish puppet masters trying to change the culture or change the fabric of society.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things about the Red Scare that immediately comes to the fore is that, you're talking about espionage or subversion. There's no ethnic character to it per se, but it immediately became an excuse for anti-Semites and anti-Semitism to come to the fore, as well as anti-Black racism. There's no reason why that has to enter the conversation, and yet very quickly it did. And it just gives a lie to the idea that really all that was going on was this hunt for, subversion and spies. It was really much broader. It was a pretext for attacking civil rights, labor rights, women's rights. It was a pretext for anti-Semitic attacks. And again, I think that it's hard not to see those echoes in 2025.
Certainly not. And can you give us then just back up a little bit about the context of the Red Scare and McCarthyism in even, or I guess the second one, but post-war America, the New Deal era, what that environment looked like as, you saw this escalate.
Yeah, so following World War II, there was the immediate onset of the Cold War and tensions with the Soviet Union, and pretty solid evidence the Soviet Union had at various points in the past infiltrated spies into the United States, that it did have an arm domestically in the American Communist Party. And, this synced up with what had been a kind of simmering anti-progressive campaign going back to the 1930s. And, a real sort of backlash against everything that the New Deal represented, not just new policies and not just a new role for the government, but also a new culture that was more tolerant, more cosmopolitan, more progressive in all its approaches to minority rights and to women and people of color. And so that fight had been kind of put on the back burner because of the Great Depression and World War II. And so it emerged as well in the post-war era. And so the Red Scare is really the coming together of these two urgencies, right? This need for national security in the Cold War era and the fear of communist Russia or the Soviet Union as a national security issue. And then this idea that we could use that as a reason to start to prosecute this campaign, this idea to push back not just the New Deal as a policy framework, but really to push back on these cultural changes that had happened. That, you know, there were a lot of people who wanted to go back to the America of the 1920s, the America of, you know, that was more patriarchal, that was more, you know, white, run by white men.
Wealth concentration, very
exactly.
similar to now. Yeah.
It's you know, I think in some ways that fight didn't end with the end of the Red Scare, and it's something that, you know, still is an undercurrent in American politics.
Can I know that your book is about, of course, you know, more than the Hollywood element and the blacklist, but I am curious about a few elements of it. You talk about Ayn Rand in your book and the role that she played as a bit of a counterweight to these Hollywood lefties and her role in Hollywood. But what did Hollywood elites and wealthy folks get out of McCarthyism? Was there any benefit to them to having this, I guess, the governmental crackdown on some of the artists in the industry? I mean, are they submerged in this story at all?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that one of the parallels between the fight in Hollywood and today is that a lot of the elites, or let's say a lot of the celebrities in Hollywood, you know, were left-leaning and were seen as a kind of elite, and were targeted for that reason. When in fact the real elite in Hollywood, the real powerful elite, were the studio executives and the investors who owned the studios, and they were not progressive by any means, and they were very happy to see the Red Scare come to Hollywood, to see some of the activists and celebrities who had lined up behind union activism, who had tried to change the way that stories were told in Hollywood to bring more representation of women and people of color into the movie industry. You know, the elites, the real elites, were happy to see those voices quieted. And, you know, you mentioned Rand, and she was a real sort of, I want to call it an intellectual, but, you know, real voice for outlining how the new Hollywood was going to look. And, you know, according to her, and she had a manifesto that laid this out, you know, the new Hollywood would not talk about wealth disparities. It would not talk about civil rights. It would not talk about the common man. And she was very successful. That is what you saw after the House Un-American Activities Committee came and kind of, you know, helped launch the Blacklist. The stories coming out of Hollywood changed for well over a decade.
I mean, it's hard not, again, to see parallels to today, of course, and even the financialization of that industry, and perhaps we're at in a different era now, and there maybe less tolerance for the blacklisting that was happening. Perhaps it's less formal, right? But the attacks on those artists from maybe a year or so ago, it's still ongoing. But it was also at a time where the industry is rejecting more risky creative choices that might be a little bit more challenging in many ways for sequels, nostalgia, it's more financialized in a way.
Yeah, and one of the things, you know, we could just say this all day, one of the parallels or the echoes is the really rapid turn of events and the backlash in the way that, you know, the stories that were being told, the voices that were being heard just a few years ago, you know, have now been marginalized. And whether that's in Hollywood or in the classroom or just in the cultural discourse, things have changed dramatically. And the same thing happened during the Red Scare. People who were, you know, front and center in debates about, let's say, civil rights in the 1930s were suddenly added to the blacklists and were marginalized very quickly. And, you know, you sort of can look in both cases as to why that happened. And it's because elites simply saw a new opportunity to change the discourse and to start talking in a way that was more beneficial to them. And, it can have long-running effects. I mean, this is not something that will change based on the midterm elections.
Well, and it's also, I mean, you write about how many of these stories too, they included things like, the liberation of women. And when we're coming out of World War II, where women were brought into the war effort and there's this new awareness, that's, I would imagine, immensely threatening. And more dignified portrayals of Black Americans as the civil rights movement is brewing. That's also a part of this as well. And you see how that the liberation of people or uplifting of those voices is a genuine threat to kind of the same people at the very top.
Yeah, I mean, one thing just to add to that, I have a chapter in the book talking about what's called the lavender scare. And this was a direct outgrowth of a surprising thawing of homophobic and anti-gay structures, particularly in the cities during the Great Depression and World War II, when it was possible, I mean, Washington, D.C. being first and foremost, where it was possible, as long as you were careful, and I'm not going to say it was some sort of utopia for gay men and queer people, but it was possible to live a life where you were kind of out, and there was a lot of change going on, and then there was an enormous backlash against all of that going into the 1950s, and it wasn't just cultural; it was governmental. There were just concerted efforts, very specific efforts to root out gay men and lesbian women from government office and from government service. The State Department was target number one, and hundreds of people were fired simply because they were suspected of not following gender norms. And one of the consequences of that is some really good, really hardworking and smart diplomats, people we needed during the Cold War, were suddenly fired. Their lives were essentially ended because of that.
And there's this overarching theme of a combination of, more a more libertarian economic situation for people, or people basically being uplifted in a variety of different ways, whether it's women, Black people, queer people, and then this just force of power, and it's under this guise of like rooting out moral degeneracy for the most part. But you see it, I mean, Hoover was gay, and like you have that being used as blackmail potentially, or as a cudgel, I guess, against the lefties that were trying to change society.
Yeah, I mean, what happened during the Red Scare was this imposition of a real black and white ideology, and one that said, during the Cold War, there is one side and there's the other side. And you are either with America or you're against it. And it was then, and that's bad in itself. But what that ideology then, what happened, it was then weaponized by people who, saw it to their advantage to say, okay, in this column is going to be everything I like, and over in that column is going to be everything I don't like. And so labor rights and women's rights, they're going to go in the communist column. And we're just going to say that everybody who advocates for desegregation, they're going to be questioned. Everybody who we think might be gay, they're going to go, we were going to say that they might be communist, or because they might be blackmailed. They're going to go in the other column. And we're going to sort of do everything we can to oppress them and to marginalize them. And we're going to do it under the pretext of national security. So no one can really question what we're doing. This is the new era when we have to be vigilant. And it's just amazing how deep and how long that lasted as a way of ordering American society, how many people suffered because of that. And in the end, it didn't improve our national security at all.
Right. Can you talk a bit about education and how the Red Scare, in that era, there was a war on different forms of education? We're seeing some of this today as well in terms of the parallels we've outlined.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that jumps out, just like today we have the Moms for Liberty, back then there was a group called the Minute Women. And the Minute Women was essentially the same idea. These were chapters around the country of anti-communist women activists who believed that they needed to take the fight to schools. And so they would either, go into school board meetings and, raise protests. They would try to take over school boards, and they would then, essentially impose their agenda, their ideology on schools, and to say, well, there are these books that we can no longer read. There were long lists of prescribed books that went around the country, and some of them, the justification was impossible to explain. Often it was the author themselves was somehow questionable, or the content was, too anti-elite or too focused on the common man, right? These were potentially communistic books, no different from today. And teachers themselves were targeted. If you were a teacher who promoted desegregation, or you thought the UN was a good idea, you might find yourself either investigated or even fired. Hundreds of teachers, even here right in New York City, were investigated and fired because of either beliefs and positions they took in the classroom, or maybe something they had done as a college student, a petition they had signed. Suddenly they were very much under the microscope. And it, again, not only ruined the lives of countless people, but it also did a great disservice to us as a country. Great teachers were suddenly kicked out of the profession for spurious reasons, right at the time when, we always need great teachers, but, arguably in the 1950s, we really needed great teachers.
Right. Well, it's fascinating stuff. Really appreciate your time today. Thanks so much for coming on, Clay Risen. The book is called Red Scare, Blacklists, McCarthyism, and the Making of Modern America. We'll put a link to that down below wherever people are listening to or watching this. Holidays are coming up. Books are great to give. Thanks so much, Clay. Really appreciate your time.
Thanks so much for having me.
Quick break, folks, and when we come back, we do have a guest, fortunately, from the National Day Laborer Organizing Network. Chris Newman, their legal director, will join us in just a bit.
Right live.
We are back. We are back, joined now by Chris Newman, legal director for the National Day Laborer Organizing Network. Chris, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Of course. So just tell us a little bit about your work at the National Day Laborer Organizing Network, because we're seeing, we're getting the numbers. There was a piece in Axios this morning about the incredible, not in the good way, influx of ICE arrests. They're primarily targeting people who have no criminal record, and even if the folks that they're also increasing and targeting, like they have an arrest, not necessarily a conviction, that kind of thing. And they're going after day laborers in particular, targeting them in at stores like Home Depot. We've been showing some of that footage. What has your organization been doing on that front?
Well, first, I think it's important to accurately describe the crisis because, I'm zooming in from Los Angeles, and what we're experiencing in the city here is nothing short of a human rights crisis along the lines that you described. They're looking for areas where there are large numbers of Spanish-speaking low-wage workers, non-white low-wage workers. They use this notion of criminality, oftentimes trying to identify one person as a pretext to then do a kind of arrest first and ask questions later approach, which is totally antithetical to every notion of due process and constitutional values that we have. And so locations such as day labor hiring sites, car washes, other locations where there are large groups of people tend to be what they call target-rich environments. And so it's fair to say that the day labor community has been terrorized first in Los Angeles, but now as we're seeing, it's spreading across the country. We've been doing everything we can with our scarce resources to rush to the gunfire and try to mitigate the unnecessary suffering that is being brought on by these raids. Ours is a network that is comprised of 70 small organizations around the country that work with day laborers. We kind of pool our resources. I've been the legal director there. for 20 years, and I've never seen anything like the crisis that we are facing. On the other hand, the response of our members and supporters has been nothing short of inspirational. So what we do is in Los Angeles, first and foremost, we started something called the Immigrant Defense Fund, which I think you can find easily on Google. We ask for people to donate money, and then we make sure that low-wage workers get high-quality immigration defense in appropriate cases, and then we will sort of use those clients as places where we can get information to support other lawsuits as well.
We will put a link to that donation website that you mentioned down below, and where people are listening to or watching this. But can you speak a little bit more about your organizing strategy in the wake of this level of the human rights violations, the targeted enforcement of this, the ICE budget now, the crazy expansion of it is now hitting, right? October, I think, was when the fiscal year started. So the budget that was agreed upon by the Republicans and some Democrats earlier this year is coming into effect. And then you're also seeing those quotas being more fulfilled in terms of the amount that these ICE agents are doing, targeting people. Like, what has these last 6 weeks look like, even in comparison to the previous part of the year?
Well, there was a dramatic escalation across the country, but in particular in Los Angeles, both in scale and in violence. You got a little bit of an unlucky break that I'm filling in for my colleague, Jorge, who is one of our gifted organizers. Endelon is primarily an organizing network, but I happen to do the legal work. So unfortunately, I think I'll probably keep veering my answers that way, just kind of reflexively. But what we've done, which has really been magnificent, is we've created this kind of Adopt a Corner program where communities are coming together basically to defend their own towns and locations. And so we have, soccer moms showing up to Home Depots with cameras, with Know Your Rights information, doing all of the rapid response kind of Migro Watch stuff. And those little committees are growing in sort of breadth and depth around the country. And it's been a beautiful thing to see, because I mean, what we're seeing obviously is a calamity that's being brought from the top down. And I think it's important, and I don't want to editorialize too much, to note that Trump is just sort of the capstone on a kind of bipartisan consensus war on immigrants that's taken place for over 25 years. And so it's not, I mean, and people get divided. Is this like not normal, or is it like just an extension of what has been normal? And count me in the latter camp. And so I think people, who are, obviously part of the intention, the political project is to divide people, divide communities physically, metaphorically, but to see communities coming together, organizing around individual cases, accompanying people to ICE hearings, raising money, passing the hat for legal defense, doing what we just did last week in Monrovia, which, incredible demonstration with a bunch of old, primarily elderly folks doing an old-fashioned Alinsky style buy-in at Home Depot, clogging Home Depot up to sort of make the point that Home Depot needs to be safe for everyone. So we're seeing, in general, what I've said repeatedly, I think it's true, is the leadership that we're seeing in definitely LA, Chicago, other places, is leadership is coming from the streets. And we're just trying to support that leadership. And I think you've seen, for example, in Illinois, the governor and mayor have gotten the memo in a sense, and I think are following the lead of a community that's unifying and coming together. I think California leaders have been a little slower, frankly.
Can you expand on that? Because I think that's an important point, right? I do think that the way that Pritzker and Johnson responded was more unified than anything we saw coming out of Newsom and Bass, and it feels like they're lagging a little bit in protecting the community.
Oh, to say the least, honestly. And remember, Mayor Bass had, her approval rating was in the dumps after the fire. People were very upset with how slow and uncoordinated the response to the fires were right when Trump took office. And in some ways, she's been buoyed by her show of support for immigrants, but she hasn't been doing the types of policy and legal interventions yet that we've seen in Chicago, and in Illinois, ditto with Governor Newsom. I'm not sure exactly.
Oh yeah. Go on.
And honestly, can I just say, here's my one little like unsolicited hot take since I'm on this podcast that I
editorialize
admire.
away. This is what this is for.
I would love. I mean, we have two people that are clearly running for president, in Newsom and Pritzker, and rather than like what we've had for the last 25 years with Democrats, which is just like pretty talk, lip service, posturing, kind of focus group tested messaging. I would like to see, starting now, a kind of scorecard where we measure the response of Newsom and Pritzker for the next 3 years. Who did more to protect the residents of their states, the non-citizen residents of their states? And we'll start there when they go into the primary and evaluating before we hear what they're going to say about the DREAM Act or whatever. And it would be neat if we could get a kind of race to the top. We have, for example, in Seattle, the police chief there came out and made this incredibly courageous statement and show of solidarity, saying that he, anticipated potentially getting arrested to defend immigrants. People might be shocked to know Karen Bass appointed a Trump-supporting police chief in LA, in Jim McDonnell, somebody who was the principal opponent of the sanctuary state bill that Endelon championed, that is protecting hundreds of thousands of people right now, preventing raids from taking place at police stations and sheriff's departments and jails. So LA does not have an ally in its police chief due to the really terrible decision of Karen Bass to appoint that guy, versus, again, you see a guy like the chief in Seattle. We should see, I hope, a race to the top in terms of actual material achievements by local elected officials, and obviously everyone's welcoming Mamdani. I had a chance to speak with the mayor-elect. I had a sort of 5 minutes of fame working on Kilmar Abrego Garcia's case, and I had a chance to talk to, it feels surreal to say, the mayor-elect at MSNBC in one of those green rooms, and he is the real deal. He's he's an immigrant mayor, and he's gonna stand up for immigrants, and hopefully he will set a new bar that will then inspire Mayor Bass, Mayor Johnson, and other mayors to do more. So that's my little unsolicited plea for the political class not to, again, evaluate just all this messaging and kind of ethereal talk, which has kind of infected the politics of immigration from the Democratic Party side. We don't need shows of sympathy or solidarity or statements about dignity. We need material interventions that protect community residents like now. And there are lots of things that governors and mayors can do that hopefully they will be politically motivated to do in the next 3 years.
I think you can both make a positive case for immigration and return that to people's civic minds, which many Democrats are just not doing. I mean, Zoran Mamdani has been good on that, and that's just because he's pretty much good on everything. But there's no national messaging from the Democratic Party about how immigrants are our strength, that this is a nation of immigrants, the kind of stuff that you would hear about in history class or civics class or whatever when you were in high school. You don't hear that from the Democrats, and I want that to change. But the material kind of protections that you're talking about are of urgent importance. Can you explain what those look like in your experience, and what are some easy ways that this could happen?
Totally, but just before I get to that, I mean, it was a little bit triggering in your question. I'll take the messaging, the good messaging too. I was down in El Salvador. I got detained with Senator Van Hollen when we were trying to access Kilmar Abrego Garcia outside of CCOT. By then, we were 3 weeks or so into what was a sustained effort, clearly by Trump, to kind of use, Trump was using Kilmar to distract from whatever economic news, but we were responding. 3 weeks in, and I'm talking about every day on the front page, and there was zero message guidance from the Democratic Party to members that were going on Meet the Press or whatever. And I know that for a fact. And so you get an absence of messaging. Thank God Senator Van Hollen set the gold standard and introduced the notion of due process and recognized the fact that Kilmar Abrego Garcia is a civil rights leader. He will be understood in history books as a civil rights leader for all of us, and I'm grateful to Senator Van Hollen for introducing that message. But we get nothing from, for example, Majority Leader Jeffries, and then when we do get something, we get what we got yesterday, which was like trash. I mean, him defending the Trump border record was just astonishing, jaw-dropping. No need for him to do that, but maybe he's listening to whatever think tank in D.C. is telling him to triangulate. Anyhow, so we do need better messaging too. But the best way to have better messaging is to have good policies. And the first and best policy that you can have is something that prevents local police and sheriffs and criminal justice from cooperating with ICE, the so-called sanctuary policies. And we just won again the most recent legal challenge against the California policy yesterday. These have an undefeated record in federal court, something that easily jurisdictions can do. They can prohibit their local police and sheriffs from cooperating, because the way in which mass deportations are effectuated, and the reason why Obama deported more people in his first term than Trump did in his first term, was because they were using police as so-called force multipliers. These fat guys that you see on television running around chasing people and, at the Home Depots, there's only so many of them, and they can only get so many people. But if they can use every squad car, every police in a city, now all of a sudden you're talking about mass deportations. So that's the first thing. Other things you can do are, for example, like something we did in Los Angeles. You can require that big box stores where big box construction stores like Home Depot, you can require that they build shelters and day labor centers. So Los Angeles has an ordinance, believe it or not, that requires, if Home Depot is to build another store in LA, that they have to build a shelter and a safe place for day laborers. That's something that cities can do. There's been a lot of interest in Home Depot lately. That's a policy intervention as well. I think that there's a whole array of things, and I could go on, but there are, in fact, good policies. There are lawsuits that can be filed, affirmative lawsuits that can be filed. I think it's been a mistake by some of these attorneys general to just merely jump in as amicus on lawsuits from the ACLU. And lawsuits like some of ours. They could initiate their own lawsuits. I'll give you a perfect example. And again, not to keep harping on my hometown mayor, who obviously does a lot of good too and is constrained. But that day, if you think back when they did that whole military parade in MacArthur Park and down early on in June when they did the easily the city of Los Angeles could have filed a 10th Amendment lawsuit on that day, challenging the fact that they were doing a military parade, and usurping city resources, but they didn't. So hopefully there will be, more legal capacity lent by local jurisdictions as well. And I do think also in the next 3 years, we're going to see some attorneys general and district attorneys distinguish themselves in this Trump 2.0 era.
Yep.
And again, not through kind talk, not through statements of sympathy, but through creative litigation. And whereas Trump won, there was this kind of flash of resistance, and then it kind of dissipated. It feels like, on a hopeful note, that there's a kind of steadier, more sustained material buildup that's happening this time around.
I do feel quite lucky here in New York to have, for our neighbors here, for us to have Letitia James, who has a pretty good track record of coming up with these kinds of creative legal ways to fight back against the Trump administration. Then she'll have buy-in from the mayor-elect, of course, Zohran Mamdani. So I'm thinking of you guys in LA. I think the organizing, DSA, that kind of stuff. You're getting there. You're getting there, but it's. Yeah, it's still lagging a bit. Go ahead.
My pitch to your listeners or viewers is, obviously, if you go upstream of this whole, everyone's got their theory about what led to Trumpism, but social isolation and an erosion of community are at the core of it, no matter if you're living in Nashville, LA, Chicago, wherever. And the one, again, hopeful and neat thing about getting involved in a hyper-local effort to defend your community is that you meet really cool people. I remember when we were doing the fire response work again early when Trump was, I remember meeting people that literally did like a Tinder date at a mutual aid center. There's cool kind of community building that can happen. And you can kind of fight that sense of powerlessness that we all have. For us, there's no point in doing anything. You were asking questions about the budget. we are not, we're monitoring what's happening in DC, but it's not like we're going to the halls of Congress, like lobbying members of Congress right now. No, at Endlon, we are just working at a very hyper local level and recognizing that if we do our work right, that the people, the kind of would-be victims of today are going to be the civil rights leaders of tomorrow. And hopefully, there will be a time when we'll be able to come back with more collective strength and more collective buy-in from the American public for immigrant rights.
How can our audience help with your organizing network in terms of even, long-term building, but also in the short-term rapid response with ICE terrorizing neighborhoods?
Well, I'd say that, there's several ways. The first is just to go to our website and donate and know that we are providing high quality legal representation to people that otherwise wouldn't get it. Again, I'll kind of, since I hope, hopefully not speaking too much out of class, there's an interesting thing happening in the kind of immigration bar right now, where it's sort of the best of times and worst of times. There are incredibly heroic immigration attorneys that are doing really creative legal work, habeas actions and the like, but there also are a lot of bottom feeder immigration lawyers right now that are taking people's money and in hopeless cases. And so, and that's a little bit of a taboo to talk about. But so, we are definitely providing and linking people with high quality legal services. You can donate there. You can join our Adopt a Corner initiative. We have all kinds of, daily and weekly Zooms about how you can create a local committee, whether it's to just go to your local school and help people pick up students after school, because a lot of parents are afraid to pick up their kids after school, or whether it's going to a Home Depot, or whether it's providing, information at work sites or chasing around ICE. You can do that. I think there are a number of ways, and we're trying to figure out ways to kind of onboard people. So I guess give money, give your time if you can, and if you can give your creativity. That helps too. I in my own neighborhood when the raids started, I just one of the first things I did. One of my heroes is Mike Davis, and he always says, when in doubt, just go outside and start handing out flyers. And so I went all around Highland Park and passed out signs to businesses saying ICE is not welcome. Get a warrant before entering. And now if you go anywhere for coffee in Highland Park, you'll see those signs everywhere. So you can just literally walk around your neighborhood and with signs that you print at Kinko's and give them to your coffee shop and say, hey, I'm a customer here. Can you please put up this sign saying ICE is not welcome here? We're not going to serve coffee to ICE. Get a warrant. So you don't necessarily even need, 10, 20, 50 people to do a direct action. You can do something in an hour. We have flyers that you can download on our website for Home Depot. And if you're, not in a position of privilege where you can boycott, Home Depot, as many people are doing, if you have to go to Home Depot, you can go and pass out flyers on windshields of cars. It takes 15 minutes, and you can fill the entire parking lot of a Home Depot with signs saying ICE out of Home Depot, and the manager will get the message. So, I think the key is to just take some action, because to me, my biggest fear, Emma, is that there's this sort of thing that's happening where people aren't clicking on the links anymore because they don't want to get bummed out. A little bit like kind of, I think, what happened with Gaza. It's like, yeah, it's terrible, but there's nothing I can do about it. So therefore, I'm going to click on a link about Taylor Swift and not, the latest news of the atrocity in Gaza. And that that results not just in the dehumanization of the people who are being, handcuffed and harmed unnecessarily. That results in the dehumanization of all of us. It's like a piece of our humanity dies when we just decide, fuck it, like let's tune out. And the best solution to that is to take some small action, even if it's just sharing posts on a daily, like putting it in people's face. Like, don't look away from this most recent story of a dreamer flying to Texas and being put into deportation, because I think we're all clearly collectively implicated. I mean, our taxpayers are funding these human rights violations. And the worst thing that could happen to us right now is that we become kind of desensitized or dehumanized ourselves into just a kind of complacency or sense of resignation.
Hear, hear. Chris Newman, legal director for the National Day Laborer Organizing Network. We will put a link to everything that you spoke about down below in the episode and YouTube descriptions and at majority.fm. Thanks so much for your time today, Chris.
Thank you for everything you're doing, and thank you for inviting me on. I really, really am grateful for the opportunity.
Oh, of course. Thank you for everything you're doing. Appreciate it. Thanks so much, Chris. All right, with that, folks, we're going to wrap up the first hour, the free hour-ish, hour and 15-ish.
Change.
Hour and change of this program, and head into the fun half, where we will read your IMs and we'll maybe take a few calls. We shall see how it goes. Lots and lots of news as always. As a reminder, this show relies on your support. If you go to jointhemajorityreport.com, you can chip in a little bit. We can keep having interviews like this, highlighting things like, direct action, organizing, rapid response to ICE, talking about the genocide in Gaza, speaking about issues that some shows and others won't touch. You keep us independent. You keep us afloat. So jointhemajorityreport.com. Jesus. So abrasive. Sounds like a hey, Brandon. It's like a bird. Just crimes right in my caw. Like ducking for cover. Jointhemajorityreport.com. Brandon, hello.
Hello.
How are you today, and what's happening over on the discourse?
I'm doing incredibly well today. I hope you are doing well as well. After our week off for last Thursday.
Yes.
The YouTube channel's going well, I saw.
My YouTube channel's going well.
Yeah,
sometimes it's not as well. So I'm gonna be honest with you, not as well as I feel like it could be doing. But that's just my ego talking. But if you
also you don't promote it as much.
You just got that grind set.
If you'd like to be, I like to keep humble. A lot of people say I'm the most humble host of a leftist show, and people say
Never seen anyone so humble.
They're afraid. They're afraid of how humble I am. But yeah, just today I posted a clip of my lovely live stream that I host every day, Monday through Friday. So not every day, between 9 and 12 p.m. Eastern. So yeah, 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. Eastern. About like the inevitable pardon of Ghislaine Maxwell, Donald Trump's best friend's girlfriend and co-conspirator. So definitely go check that clip out if you need to refresh yourself regarding that case, especially as the new evidence comes out.
All right, check it out. Hey, Matt Binder, what's happening over on your side of things?
I gotta say, I also feel like my YouTube channel isn't as big as it should be.
I'm shadow banned. I'm shadow banned.
Tonight, folks, 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. Tune in to youtube.com/MattBinder to catch the newest episode of the Leftist Mafia, and subscribe to the channel to help make it as big as it should be.
All right, right. Give Binder what he deserves.
Right.
Success.
I'm also humble, by the way.
Not humble as me though.
Right. Well, we'll debate this in the fun half. Matt Leck.
A humility measuring contest.
What's happening on Left Reckoning and then with Jacobin?
Yeah, Left Reckoning. This week I did a conversation with Devin Thomas O'Shea about the new Thomas Pynchon book, Shadow Ticket, which follows a private eye in Milwaukee and the end of Prohibition and the rise of Nazism, as he investigates things like a international cheese syndicate and Nazis. A really great book, a really great conversation with not Thomas Pinch. I wish it was with Thomas Pinch, with Devin Thomas O'Shea. And anybody who is of the literary mindset will want to check that out.
All right. We will see you in the fun half.